He built something in a cave to survive, and ended up redefining what one person can become. But what happens when the weapons you created come back to haunt you, and the only way forward is to become the solution? Comment where in the world you're watching from. Then buckle up, because this journey starts in the desert and ends in the sky. The screen opens on a sun-scorched Afghan desert, heat waves distorting the horizon line where tan mountains meet pale blue sky. A military convoy moves through the frame, Humvees kicking up clouds of dust that catch the harsh midday light. Inside one vehicle, we see Tony Stark, a man in his late 30s with a goatee and sharp eyes, wearing an expensive tailored suit that looks absurdly out of place in this war zone. He's animated, charismatic, joking with young soldiers who look both starstruck and confused by his presence. The camera holds on Tony's face as he makes a wry comment about the iPod he's holding. Sunlight streaming through the windshield and illuminating one side of his face in warm gold while the other stays in shadow. The convoy stops. Tony steps out onto the sand and the camera pulls back to a wide shot showing the vastness of the landscape. The vehicles looking tiny against the endless desert. Soldiers form a protective circle around him. Tony's expression shifts slightly, still confident, but there's a flicker of something else when he glances at the barren mountains. Before anyone can react, an explosion erupts in the distance. The camera shakes. Soldiers shout. Tony turns, his face suddenly stripped of all humor, eyes wide. Another explosion, closer. Smoke and sand fill the frame. The camera stays tight on Tony's face as he runs, stumbles, hits the ground. We see his hand reaching out, fingers digging into sand, and then a missile lands 10 feet away, undetonated, with his company's logo clearly visible on its side. The camera zooms slowly on that logo as realization floods Tony's face. Then the explosion comes and the screen goes white. Cut to darkness. We hear the mechanical hum of equipment before we see anything. Slowly the image fades in on a dim stone-walled cave lit by a single hanging bulb that swings gently, casting moving shadows across rough rock. Tony wakes up gasping, his chest heaving. The camera moves down to show a car battery connected by wires to a glowing circular device embedded in his chest. His hands tremble as he touches it, confusion and fear evident in every line of his face. A voice speaks from the shadows, calm, accented. The camera pans to reveal Yinsen, an older man with kind eyes and a weary expression, sitting on a makeshift stool. He explains in measured tones that he saved Tony's life, that the device in his chest is an electromagnet keeping shrapnel from reaching his heart. The camera pulls back to show the full cave, crude metal tools scattered on a workbench, a small fire crackling in the corner, armed men visible through a heavy door. Tony's face cycles through emotions, disbelief, anger, fear, and finally a calculating focus. He asks where they are. Yinsen tells him. Tony's jaw tightens. The lighting here is all warm oranges and deep blacks, creating a sense of confinement, of being buried alive. We see Tony's hands clench into fists, knuckles whitening. Days pass in montage. The camera shows Tony and Yinsen working together, surrounded by parts and tools and scattered technical drawings. Terrorist captors watch from the doorway, weapons visible, their faces half obscured in shadow. Tony's hands move with precision, assembling something piece by piece, while Yinsen translates demands and deflects questions. The lighting remains consistently dim, the color palette desaturated, grays and browns, and the occasional spark of welding that lights their faces in brief white flashes. We see close-ups of Tony's eyes as he works, absolutely focused, his mind clearly racing far beyond the immediate task. In quieter moments, Tony and Yinsen talk. The camera favors medium two-shots, showing both men's faces as they discuss family, legacy, responsibility. Yinsen speaks of his village, his children, and something shifts in Tony's expression, a softening, a recognition of something beyond himself. The cave feels slightly less oppressive in these moments, the light from their small fire seeming warmer, more hopeful. Tony asks Yinsen what he'll do when he returns home. Yinsen smiles sadly and says his family is gone, that this is his purpose now. The camera holds on Tony's face as he absorbs this, his eyes revealing layers of guilt and determination forming. The project nears completion. We see Tony inside a crude metal suit, all rivets and rough welded plates, looking more like medieval armor than advanced technology. The camera circles slowly, showing the scale and bulk of the thing. Yinsen helps him connect the final power source. Outside the door, voices grow suspicious. The terrorists are coming. Yinsen looks at Tony and the camera moves in tight on both faces, a moment of silent understanding passing between them. Yinsen says he'll buy time. Tony, trapped in the suit as systems power up, can only watch helplessly through the narrow eye slits as his friend opens the door and runs out, drawing the gunfire away. The sounds of conflict echo through the cave. Tony's face inside the helmet shows anguish, rage, helplessness. Finally, the suit powers fully. He moves, each step heavy and mechanical, emerging from the cave into harsh desert sunlight that floods the frame, temporarily overexposing everything. The camera adjusts to show terrorists turning toward this metallic figure. Tony raises one arm. Fire erupts from the suit's flamethrower, and the camera stays wide, showing the chaos from a distance, keeping violence at the edge of frame, more suggested than shown. Through it all, Tony searches for Yinsen, finally finding him on the sand, the older man's breathing shallow. The camera moves in close as Tony kneels beside him, the metal suit suddenly seeming grotesque and irrelevant. Yinsen's eyes are peaceful. He tells Tony not to waste his life, to make it mean something. The light here is golden, the harshness of the earlier desert sun now softened, almost gentle. Yinsen's eyes close. Tony's face inside the helmet crumbles. The camera pulls back slowly, showing this metal-clad figure kneeling in the sand beside a fallen friend. Smoke rising in the background, mountains silent and indifferent. Tony activates the suit's flight system. The camera follows as he rockets upward, crude and uncontrolled, flames shooting from boots and gloves. He soars over dunes and rocks, the landscape spreading out below in vast golden patterns. Then the fuel runs out. He plummets, crashes, tumbles across the sand. The suit breaks apart around him. He lies there in the wreckage, staring up at the vast blue sky, chest heaving. After a long moment, he starts to laugh, a broken, exhausted, slightly hysterical sound. The camera tilts up to that endless sky as rescue helicopters appear as distant specks. Cut to a press conference room, all white walls and bright fluorescent lights reflecting off polished floors. Tony stands at a podium, looking different, thinner, a visible scar on his neck, his eyes carrying weight they didn't have before. Reporters pack the room, cameras flashing. His business partner Obadiah Stane, an imposing bald man with a salt and pepper beard, stands to the side looking concerned. Tony's assistant Pepper Potts, an elegant woman with strawberry blonde hair and an intelligent, attentive expression, watches from the wings. Tony looks at his prepared statement, then sets it down. The camera moves in close on his face as he says simply, quietly, that his company will no longer manufacture weapons. The room erupts. Obadiah's face registers shock, then forced calm. Pepper's eyes widen, but her expression remains professionally neutral. The camera holds on Tony's face as cameras flash around him like small explosions. His jaw set, his choice made. In his Malibu mansion, all soaring glass walls, ocean views, and sleek modern furniture, Tony descends to his private workshop. The camera follows him down steel stairs into a space filled with robotic arms, holographic displays, and precision tools. His AI assistant Jarvis speaks in a cultured British accent, the voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Tony stands before a workbench covered in sketches and prototype pieces. Soft blue light from computer screens illuminates his face from below, making his eyes seem to glow with purpose. He tells Jarvis they're going to build something better. The camera circles around him as he works through the night, his hands moving constantly, his mind clearly on fire with possibilities. Weeks of work unfold in careful sequence. We see Tony testing repulsor technology in his garage, his hand encased in a metallic glove. He fires it at the wall. The force sends him flying backward into his sports cars, setting off alarms. He sits on the floor laughing and swearing, already calculating adjustments. His robotic assistant dummy sprays him with a fire extinguisher. The lighting here is warmer than the cave, still focused and intense, but with touches of amber and copper, the glow of creation rather than survival. Tony constructs new armor piece by piece. The camera shows close-ups of his hands assembling arc reactor technology, the circular power source that will replace the crude battery in his chest. We see the device glowing blue-white, pulsing gently like an artificial heart. Tony removes the old magnet, a moment of vulnerability crossing his face, then installs the new reactor. The light from it shines up onto his face, turning his skin almost ethereal, his eyes reflecting that cold blue fire. He exhales slowly. Pepper happens to arrive to deliver papers, sees him with the reactor exposed, and her professional composure cracks into genuine concern. Tony jokes about it, but the camera catches his eyes tracking her reaction, something complex and unspoken passing between them. The new suit takes shape. Not crude welded metal this time, but sleek red and gold plates that curve and interlock with precision. The camera glides over the pieces as robotic arms assemble them, each component catching and reflecting the workshop lights. Tony steps into a rig that helps him don the armor. Mechanical arms move in choreographed sequence, attaching each piece: boots, legs, torso, arms, finally the helmet. The faceplate closes, and for a moment we see only the glowing eyes before the heads-up display flickers to life inside, bathing Tony's face in soft light and scrolling data. He asks Jarvis to run diagnostics. Everything checks green. First flight test. The camera is positioned at ground level in the workshop as Tony activates the repulsors. Blue-white energy glows from his palms and boots. He lifts off slowly at first, wobbling slightly. The camera tilts up with him as he rises toward the ceiling. Jarvis warns about the roof. Tony grins, makes a minute adjustment and suddenly rockets upward, crashing through into the level above, sending dummy scattering. Tony lies in the wreckage surrounded by fallen trophies and debris, the armor scratched but intact. He laughs again, that same slightly manic sound of someone discovering they can actually do the impossible. He flies for real next. The camera follows him out into the night sky above Malibu, the mansion's lights falling away below. The ocean spreads out beneath him, black water reflecting scattered moonlight. Tony accelerates, the wind turbine sounds mixing with the hum of the repulsors. He soars up through cloud layers, the camera spinning around him to show his form against the vast darkness of space above and the glow of Los Angeles spread across the earth below. Ice begins forming on the suit. Jarvis warns about altitude limits. The suit freezes, locks up. Tony plummets, tumbling uncontrolled through the clouds. The camera stays tight on his face inside the helmet, showing fear and exhilaration mixing as he fights to regain control. Finally, the systems reboot. He catches himself just above the water, the repulsors engaging with a blast that sends spray everywhere. He hovers there for a moment, breathing hard, then shoots back up into the sky, this time in full control, weaving between buildings, executing barrel rolls over the beach. The camera captures it all in fluid motion, the suit's movements becoming more confident, more graceful. Back in the workshop, covered in sweat, Tony pulls off the helmet. His hair is wild, his eyes blazing. Pepper arrives with reports about the company, about Obadiah's concerns, about the board's resistance to Tony's new direction. Tony barely listens, too focused on refinements to the suit. The camera shows Pepper's face as she watches him, seeing both his genius and his obsession, her expression mixing admiration with worry. She places a hand on his arm. He finally looks up, really sees her. A moment passes between them, unspoken, before he deflects with a joke and she rolls her eyes and leaves. But the camera lingers on both their faces, showing what neither will say. Through news reports shown on multiple screens in Tony's workshop, we learn that his company's weapons are being used by terrorists in Afghanistan, the same region where he was held. The footage shows villages under attack, families fleeing. Tony watches, his jaw clenching tighter with each image. The light from the screens reflects in his eyes, blue and cold and unforgiving. He looks down at the arc reactor in his chest, glowing steadily, then at the finished suit standing in its assembly rack. The camera moves from his face to the suit and back, the connection between them clear. That night, Tony flies to Afghanistan. The camera shows the journey in sweeping shots over dark ocean, over Middle Eastern cities glowing like circuit boards, finally descending into a combat zone lit by fires and muzzle flashes. He arrives as terrorists attack a village. The camera stays at a distance but shows Tony's intervention clearly, disarming weapons with precision repulsor blasts, positioning himself between civilians and threats, moving with inhuman speed and accuracy. Families scatter to safety. The terrorists flee. Tony stands in the village square, the armor's eyes glowing in the darkness. Villagers emerging cautiously from hiding to see this metal figure that just saved them. Children approach slowly. Tony nods to them, then launches back into the sky, leaving them staring upward in wonder. He doesn't make it home cleanly. 2 F-22 fighter jets intercept him, pilots reporting an unidentified object. The camera cuts between Tony's face inside the helmet and the fighter's perspective. Missiles locking on. Tony tries to outmaneuver them, but one missile launches. He barely evades. His friend Colonel James Rhodes appears on the comm channel, not knowing he's talking to Tony, demanding identification. Tony debates revealing himself, decides against it. He outflies the jets with moves no human pilot could survive, the camera spinning and diving to capture the aerial ballet. Finally, he escapes, rocketing back toward Malibu as dawn breaks, the sunrise painting the sky in layers of pink and gold. He crashes into the mansion at high speed, tumbling through the workshop and coming to rest surrounded by wreckage. The armor is scorched and dented. Tony lies still for a moment, then the faceplate opens. He's grinning. The camera pulls back to show him sprawled among broken equipment and scattered tools, alive, successful, transformed. But the public intervention has consequences. News footage floods the airwaves. Speculation runs wild about this Iron Man figure. The military wants answers. Obadiah confronts Tony at Stark Industries headquarters, a sleek building of glass and steel. They meet in a modern conference room, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city spread out below. Obadiah's voice is friendly, but his eyes are calculating. He says the board is concerned, that Tony's behavior is erratic, that the company needs stability. The camera alternates between their faces, Obadiah playing the concerned partner, Tony guarded and alert. Light from the windows creates hard shadows across both men, visually splitting them down the middle. Tony investigates his company's weapons pipeline. Pepper helps, though frightened of the implications. They break into Obadiah's office late at night, the building empty and dark except for emergency lighting that casts everything in green-tinged shadow. Pepper accesses the computer while Tony stands watch. The camera stays tight on Pepper's face, lit only by the screen glow as she discovers files showing Obadiah has been dealing weapons to both sides, that he orchestrated Tony's kidnapping, that he's been undermining Tony's leadership for months. Her hands tremble on the keyboard. She downloads everything to a small drive, pockets it. Behind her through the glass office walls, we see Tony's silhouette in the doorway, his posture tense. They leave separately. Pepper goes to Rhodes, gives him the evidence. The camera shows her in a dim parking garage, the overhead lights creating pools of illumination separated by deep shadow. She hands Rhodes the drive, tells him everything, asks him to do the right thing. Rhodes's face shows the weight of choosing between his friend and his duty. He nods slowly, pockets the drive, tells her to stay safe. The camera follows her as she walks away, her heels echoing off concrete, looking over her shoulder into the darkness. Tony returns home to find Obadiah waiting. The older man stands in the living room, bathed in the orange light of sunset pouring through those massive windows. His expression is cold now, the friendly mask gone. He holds a small device. The camera moves in close as he activates it, a sonic weapon that paralyzes Tony, dropping him to the floor. Tony fights to move, can't. Obadiah kneels beside him, and the camera frames them from above, showing Tony's helplessness. Obadiah reaches for the arc reactor in Tony's chest. We see Tony's face, horror and rage mixing as Obadiah removes the glowing device, leaving a dark cavity in Tony's chest. The blue light that's been present in every workshop scene, every quiet moment of creation, goes out. Obadiah holds the reactor up to the dying light, studies it, pockets it. He tells Tony he's taking everything, the company, the technology, the legacy. The camera stays on Tony's face as paralysis fades and pain floods in. He gasps, clawing at his chest, while Obadiah's footsteps fade away down the stairs. Tony crawls. The camera follows at floor level as he drags himself across polished floors toward the workshop stairs. Each movement is agony. Sweat covers his face. The light is dim now, no arc reactor glow, just the last remnants of sunset fading through windows. He makes it to the stairs, tumbles down them, pulls himself to a workbench. His backup reactor, the original crude version from the cave, sits in a display case marked proof that Tony Stark has a heart. Pepper put it there. Tony smashes the glass with shaking hands, grabs the device, forces it into the cavity in his chest. Power surges back. The workshop lights flicker on. Tony collapses against the bench, breathing hard, blue light spilling across his face again. But different now. The glow is dimmer, less refined, a reminder of where he started. Obadiah has taken the armor designs to his own facility. In a massive warehouse lit by harsh industrial floods, engineers work around an enormous metal suit, a crude but powerful version of Tony's design, built large and intimidating. Obadiah watches from a raised platform as they install the stolen arc reactor into the chest of this mechanical giant. The camera circles the suit, showing its scale, twice Tony's size, heavy, weaponized. Obadiah climbs into the pilot seat. Systems power up. The eyes glow red instead of blue. He tests the movement, servos whining, metal groaning. A smile crosses his face. The camera pulls back to show the full machine standing upright, a perversion of everything Tony built, turned back toward violence and domination. Tony suits up. The camera shows the assembly process one more time, but faster now, familiar, each piece snapping into place with practiced efficiency. The faceplate closes. The heads-up display comes alive. Jarvis runs through systems. Everything is green except power. The old reactor will only sustain the armor at reduced capacity. Tony tells Jarvis to allocate all power to the repulsors. He lifts off from the workshop, shooting up through the house and into the night sky. The camera follows him as he accelerates towards Stark Industries, the city lights streaking past below. At the facility, Pepper and Rhodes have arrived with agents. They're ordering evacuations when the building explodes from inside. Obadiah emerges in his massive suit, concrete and steel raining around him. People scatter. The camera captures the chaos from multiple angles, running figures, falling debris, the enormous metal giant striding forward. Car alarms wail. Streetlights cast wild shadows. Obadiah's suit raises one arm, weaponizing, targeting the fleeing civilians. Tony arrives. The camera shows him descending from above, repulsors flaring, positioning himself between Obadiah and the crowd. The two metal figures face each other under streetlights that make them look like battling titans from myth. Tony's voice, amplified through the suit speakers, tells everyone to run. Pepper sees him, recognizes the armor, her hand going to her mouth. Rhodes immediately starts coordinating the evacuation, but keeps glancing back at Tony, piecing together the truth. The confrontation erupts. Obadiah's suit is stronger, more heavily armored. Tony is faster, more agile. The camera follows them as they clash through the industrial complex. Tony dodging heavy strikes, using precision blasts, staying mobile. Obadiah barrels through obstacles, unstoppable, weapon systems firing. The fight moves from ground to air, Tony lifting Obadiah into the sky to draw him away from civilians. They grapple at altitude, the city lights far below, both suits straining against each other. The camera spins around them, showing the struggle against the vast darkness of the night sky. Tony's power drops. The old reactor can't sustain this. Warning indicators flood his display. He makes a desperate decision, flying higher, pulling Obadiah up toward the edge of the atmosphere where his armor faced earlier. The temperature drops. Ice forms on both suits. Obadiah doesn't have the anti-icing modifications. His suit begins to freeze, lock up. Tony releases him, watches him plummet, then follows him down in a controlled dive. They crash into the Stark Industries building, through the roof, landing on the massive arc reactor that powers the facility, a huge glowing ring of energy built into the structure. Both damaged, both at minimal power. They face each other on the reactor platform. Through the suit's speakers, Obadiah taunts Tony, says he built this company, that Tony was always just his father's spoiled son. Tony's response is quiet, thoughtful. The camera moves in close on his eyes behind the faceplate. He tells Pepper, watching from above, to overload the reactor. She hesitates. Tony is standing right on it. He insists. The camera shows her hand hovering over the controls, tears in her eyes, then pressing the button. The reactor surges. Massive amounts of energy arc upward. The camera pulls back to show the entire platform erupting in blue-white light. Obadiah's suit, still metal and conductive, is caught in the blast, energy coursing through it. The red eyes flicker and die. The suit falls backward into the energy column, disappearing in brilliance. Tony's armor, designed differently, channels the energy around him.
He drops through the platform at the last second, the explosion blooming above. The camera follows him falling, tumbling, landing hard on the ground level. The building shakes, the light from above fades, silence. Pepper runs down, Rhodes behind her. They find Tony in the wreckage, the suit damaged but intact. The faceplate opens. Tony looks up at them, exhausted, alive. Pepper kneels beside him, touches his face. The camera frames them from above, surrounded by debris, lit by small fires and emergency lights. Rhodes looks away, giving them a moment of privacy, but a small smile crosses his face. The next day, a press conference. The camera shows it from multiple angles, reporters packed in, cameras ready, officials standing by with prepared statements. Rhodes has coached Tony on what to say, stick to the story, deny everything about the iron suit. Tony stands at the podium, looking at his notes. Pepper watches from the side, her expression cautiously hopeful. Rhodes stands with arms crossed, waiting for Tony to follow the plan. Tony looks at the crowd. The camera moves in close on his face, as he makes a decision. He sets down the prepared statement. A small smile plays at his lips. He says simply, clearly, into a forest of microphones, "I am Iron Man." The room erupts. Cameras flash like lightning. Reporters shout questions. Pepper's eyes close, knowing everything just changed. Rhodes shakes his head but can't quite hide a grin. Tony stands there as chaos swirls around him, his secret spoken, his identity claimed, ready for whatever comes next. The camera pulls back slowly, rising above the press conference, above the building, showing the city spread out in daylight below, vibrant, alive, full of possibility. The arc reactor in Tony's chest glows steadily through his shirt, a constant blue pulse, proof that he survived, that he changed, that he chose to be something more than he was. In the final image, we see Tony at home, standing before the massive windows of his Malibu mansion, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond. He's silhouetted against the light, just a man, but we see the glow from his chest even in shadow. He turns, looks directly at the camera, and for just a moment before the screen fades, we see in his eyes both the weight of what he's chosen, and the fire of someone who knows exactly who they've become. The arc reactor pulses one last time, and the story pauses, but doesn't end, because some transformations are only the beginning. He built something to survive, and in surviving, discovered that one person, given purpose, can change not just themselves, but the world around them. Sometimes the heaviest armor we wear is the one that finally sets us free.